Hey, out there, Facebook. Hope you guys are out there listening. Hope you're joining. Otherwise, this is going to be a tape thing. So we're going to see if anybody pops in, anybody communicates. And I may be totally doing this totally wrong, but I don't know. This is the first time. But either way, we're going to be live and hope that everything works out and all of that kind of stuff. But we are live. Mm, 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 mm. We're going to see if anybody pops in, and if no one pops in, we're going to go ahead and do a broadcast anyway. We know that we are like 1 o'clock, and 1 o'clock is usually people's lunch or it's someone's, I don't know, 1 o'clock's a very busy time. I kind of chose 1 o'clock to make sure that those who have a late lunch or just the time of day, so it may be the time of day, I don't know. Either way, if it's not, we're going to believe that maybe this will get shared, whatever, but it'll work. So we are live, our first Facebook Live. We'll wait maybe a few minutes to see if anybody pops in. And if no one pops in, it's totally fine. We're out here trying to make sure that at least we have some conversation from the posts and the Twitter feed, Twitter posts that we've been sending out, but just kind of give this a more holistic view. And so people like to hear more than they like to read. So we're going to be talking about communication, and I'll start in about a couple of seconds. Actually, probably. Oh, wait. And I don't know if like I said, someone might be popped in and I can't see it. This is my first time doing live, so forgive me if there were some pop-ins and I just did not see it. I don't even know how I can see it sitting here the way that it is. It's kind of crazy. But forgive me for my lack of technology. On my phone is different, but this one I'm sitting in front of my laptop, so it's a little difficult. Well, at any rate, we are here. Well, I am here today. Earl, my other half, could not make it today. And, I can handle it. I could definitely handle it, but he couldn't make it today. Our next time we will be talking, he will be with us. But we wanted to keep our word. Sometimes, when you don't keep your word, people so we said that Facebook Live, we will be broadcasting today, and we are. So let's see. We're talking about, excuse me, we're talking about communication today. And as I stated before, communication and finances are the two biggest, or let me not say biggest, the two leading reasons why marriages and relationships fail. And I'm sure that you could definitely tell me why. I'm sure people can say, oh, but most of the clients that we have, or most of our couples, I don't like to really call them clients, but most of our couples that we have, communication seems to be the all-ringing topic between them. And, everyone has problems with communication. You have problems with communication on your job, with your boss. Some people have difficulties communicating with their boss. Some people have just problems talking and getting their thoughts out. So communication is key. But what we really want to get at is the communication that is an issue when it comes to your relationships. And a lot of things, what we don't do is we don't talk to each other, we talk at each other. And I'm hoping to say some things today that will definitely help you, will definitely allow you to see that communication is extremely necessary. I'm sorry, I'm kind of bringing this down a little bit. It's extremely necessary in everything that we do and in everything we say, and in every way that we are. I think that's the best way to say it, within a relationship. So we had some topics that we were going to discuss today within communication, and those were fighting from the heart, who's in control and who's listening. They sound a little weird, but they really aren't that weird. They are. Once I go over them, you'll really understand what I'm talking about. So let's talk. Let's talk about fighting from the heart. One thing I want you guys to know is that arguments and conflict are necessary. They are, I would say they are so extremely necessary because they allow you to know one another. What we try to do is we try to avoid conflict. We try to, some of us shut down, some of us, I don't want to talk about, that kind of stuff. But how will I know you if I don't know the real you? Even in friendships, you have issues where there's conflict there, and a lot of friendships break up because there's been some conflict. But to be quite honest, you even learn your friends, when you are with when you're communicating, when you have a fight. So I want to make sure that we understand that arguments and conflict are extremely important. One of the things that I usually say is that strong marriages are built on the foundation of the ability to be able to weather the storm. How will you ever know how strong your marriage is if you can't even stand the rain? That's what I say. And it's vital because we are building a foundation. I know that when I say this bothers you. I know when I move like this bothers you. So when I said move, let's talk about that real quick. We have verbal and we have nonverbal communications. And some of us roll our eyes. Ladies of color, we do our head, we point our finger, we talk with our hands. There's a lot of nonverbal communications. I was looking at a show one day, and someone says, there are so many things you do when you lie, right? There's so many things that you can do that are nonverbal, that allows a police officer or a trained person to know that you are straight lying. And they said that unless you are an expert, you can't get away with it. So once you start to learn your mate, I'm not telling you to learn them so you could tell when they're lying or not. I know some of us say, yeah, I need to know. No, I'm saying so that you know how to keep your marriage and your relationship cohesive, that these nonverbals are, if, like my husband, he just kind of, he goes back and forth on his head, and I know that is a sign that he is frustrated, and I have to back off and give him some space. So, back to what we were saying, that these nonverbals and these verbals, they're important in fighting. And you have to, in arguments, I'm calling it fights because that's what we call it, fights. But they're extremely important because I gotta know you. I have to understand who you are. And by that, whether I raise my voice or whether I speak sternly or whether I speak, you have to, space out like you're talking to a kid. Of course, you don't want to talk to your significant other like a kid. But whenever I know that you're getting like that, I know that I may have to back off. I know that I may have to change my approach. I know that this is a sensitive situation or a sensitive topic for you. And so therefore you are saying, I can't go there. So that's one reason why I say that it is very important for you to have these arguments. It's the foundation that you're going to be built on. Now, there's other things, of course, the love and the love making and the intimacy and all of that other stuff that truly count and will, make up that structure. But we are talking about the ones that we like to avoid, with arguments and communications. The other thing is I wanted to talk about in fighting from the heart is we don't fight from our heart. What does that mean? Fighting from the heart means that we are fighting from a place of emotions. We often tell our couples, most of us start here. We begin to fight from this place, and it just doesn't, I don't want to hear anything, I don't want to do anything. And fighting from that place you're fighting out of anger. You're saying things that you might not necessarily mean to say. We're fighting out of hurt. We're fighting out, and see, people say, well, hurt, that comes from here. No, hurt, we process it here. Our heart heals real fast, but our mind doesn't. And so we don't forget, we keep remembering, we keep going over. And so fighting from the mind or thoughts or whatever up here, the cabeza, that is the one thing that causes such a huge issue. And so we tell couples that in fighting from the mind, it calls you, I want to know. And so then we start to kind of confront our significant other and say, well, why didn't you? Well, why don't you tell me? Well, how did that do? And it's all up here. And just because you want to win the fight. And so therefore you are continuing to go at him and go at him and go at her and go at her. And you're not fighting from a place that's going to be resolved. Now, what wants a resolve is the heart. If you fight from the heart, you're fighting from a place of emotions. Like I said before, you're fighting from a place of, I want us to get this over. Not I want to get over this and I want to leave, but I want to get this resolved between us. I want this to get, I want us to go forward. I want some forward motion between us. And so when you fight from the heart, I have my little notes. I want them to make sure we're fighting from a place of love. We're fighting from a place that is pliable. When I see, if I'm fighting from my heart because I want us to win and I want us to go forward, if I see a tear then immediately my heart kicks in. Why? If you haven't noticed that when you're in an argument with someone and they drop a tear or they start crying, you'll see the other person kind of say, let me, and then they switch up here. Well, I don't know why you're crying because such and such and such. That's an issue. And so if you can stay here, then if someone's crying, you'll still be here. That's fighting from the heart. Also, in fighting from the heart, you want to forgive. You automatically want to forgive. You want this resolved, but you want to forgive. You want this to be the end all be all. So fighting from the heart is so extremely important in allowing your marriage and your relationships to grow. You cannot and you will not get anywhere if you're constantly fighting to win. You know why? Because if you lose, I lose. And if you win, I win. There are no winners. One winner, let me say that, in a relationship. There are winners. And so it has to be that if I don't fight from the heart, I want you to tape yourself and hear what you sound like when you're fighting, if you're fighting from here. So fighting from the heart is extremely necessary in strong marriages. It's extremely necessary in strong relationships. And if you ever want to get in a relationship, or if you ever looking to get married, then you need to learn that I got to fight from my heart. And you know what? Think about it. When boxers fight, no one says, oh, they fight with their mind, they're doing so well. No, they say they got heart. And it's because they're fighting from a place of emotion of wanting to win. I want to win not just for me, but I want to win for my family. I want to win for whoever's counting on me. I want to win for these fans that are rooting for me. So they kind of have that mindset. And so that is the same mindset that we have. If we're fighting from the heart, I want this to work. I want this to win. This is not going to separate us. This is not going to cause us to hurt the family, hurt our relationship. All this time we put in, we're not going to. You gotta fight from that heart. That heart. The heart is essential. So fighting from the heart. Now, the other one, who's in control? Well, control. We all want control. And if you say you don't, you're not telling the truth. The control of an argument comes in when we kind of fail to listen. So let me start like this. The mind can process, I think, about 2,000 words a minute. That's a lot of words, right? We can process 2,000 words a minute. The mouth can only speak just below 200 words a minute. We can only speak about that time. So that's a lot of space to fill in a minute. And so what we're constantly doing is we're thinking about this, we're thinking about that, our mind's going here, our mind's going there, or what have you. And it takes a consciousness to actually want to listen. So we're sitting there and you're thinking, oh, she has on blue lipstick. Oh, she got on a black shirt. What's behind her? You're looking at just all of this is going on in your mind while you're concentrating on what I'm saying. And so we have that ability. Now, think about that and put that into you fighting with your significant other. They're talking and telling you how they feel or what they don't like or what they like or what's happening. And in your mind, what most of us do is formulate an answer. We're sitting there formulating a response. And we're not hearing exactly what the person is saying to you. So all of that 900, 1900, or 1800 and some odd words that is not filled, that space is not filled. Yes, we're sitting there, she's not going to tell me what to do. She's wrong. And so that's when butting in comes in. So that is one area of control. We start to butt in. No, I didn't. You said blah, 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 blah. Because then we start going to a place of facts. They're spewing feelings. We're spewing back facts. I didn't do that because such. You remember such. And then what we do is start getting bound down in the minutia of things. And we start arguing about, nah, you said this. No, it wasn't on Tuesday. It was on Wednesday because da-da-da-da-da. And you seriously forget what you're arguing about. You start arguing about the facts. That is because we're sitting in our minds, not listening to the person, but correcting them. And we're starting to take control of the situation. Whenever you start taking control of the situation, to me, you're being like a bully because you don't want to talk. You don't want to have the discussion. You want to tell me I'm wrong, shut it down, and then that's it. That will kill your relationship because there's no real communication. So I want us to understand that who's in control is paramount to who we are and what we are in our relationships. The other thing is when we go into who's in control, we're talking about the I always, you always, you never, I never, those things. We start making those comments, and it's like, What do you mean? I never. So in the history of our relationship, I never or I ever, there's always, we use those definitive terms to really kind of get into a control situation. And we don't mean to do it, but when we go and say that I always, you never, then it puts the other person on a place of they're offensive now. And it's like, well, what do you mean? And then you have taken control of the conversation and changed everything that the person was trying to say, because now they got to debate you and your facts. So we go into who's in control. That's who's in control. Sometimes, a lot of times, we don't mean to try to take control. Sometimes we do because we feel like the person is wrong and you're going to make it right. No, I mean, you don't get to take control of the situation because it's a partnership. It's what you and your significant other have chosen to enter into. And, one thing I want to say, check this out. You hear a lot of people talk about 50-50, right? This is a 50-50 relationship. No, never. Well, maybe 1%. 50-50 relationships do not exist in a real relationship. There are sometimes you're going to give 90%, the person's going to give 10. There's sometimes you're going to give 70, they're going to give 30. There's sometimes that you're going to give 40, 60. Maybe once in a while you do 50-50, but in a relationship, if you're always expecting 50-50, it's not going to happen. Now, what if you are the person that is always giving more than the other person is giving? Maybe there's a capability that you have that your significant other doesn't. And because you realize that in the wrong way, as that is being a strength to you, you look at it as a deficit. And so when we're in these discussions, what we do is we take control. We want the control because we're the ones that's doing more in the relationship. So it's not who's in control. It is we are in control. So when you're in an argument, sweeties, make sure that you remember that you take hold, that I'm not going to take over this argument, because I'm telling you, you see those arguments that last like for days, for hours or whatever. You guys can I'm telling you, you can get rid of an argument very quickly if you just listen. Now, the other one is control. My last point in control. You know how we get up and leave? Or we shut down or say, I'm not going to talk about this anymore. I'm done. I'm done. Like, I think I was looking at Married at First Sight, and I forgot the black couple, but she takes control of the argument all the time. I'm done. I'm not going to talk about this with you. She does it all the time. That is her taking control. And if you ever see him, he's looking deflated. If you could ever look at your spouse or your significant other while you're doing that, they look deflated. Their face is bewildered. They don't know what's happening. They are completely clueless. Watch them do that. If you're one of the people that do that, I promise you, look at your significant other. They are going to look just like I said. So that is another way that we take control of the argument. Or we leave and they're doing like this, or they're like, just flabbergasted that you actually walked out the house or walked out of the room. Most of us walk out the house, which we're going to address that on another segment. But but definitely that is a way that we take control. So we don't want you to, if you are one of those, please don't do that. You want your relationship to win. Stay there, fight it out, do it in love, from the heart. Okay, so the last one is who's listening. Now, who's listening? I think I did who's listening. Yeah, that's it. Who's listening? We talked about who's listening. But I want us to remember those three things: fighting from the heart, who's in control or who has control, and who's listening. If you're not fighting from here, you will gain control and you will stop listening. You see how they all kind of circle each other. And it is paramount in argument or a conflict. I can think about so many instances when I was first married, or when I got married at age 24. Yeah, 24, even though I've been with Earl for almost 30 years. Can you believe it? Almost 30 years. That's more than half my life, much more than half my life. And when I started out with him, I was young, I was a young Black woman, right? And I always had to prove him wrong. And that's part of my type A personality. I have to get my facts out. I have to tell you because I remember. And when I was younger, I had a photographic memory. So you couldn't tell me anything. He was completely wrong. And I remember fighting with him and having these arguments. And if you remember, your arguments always turn out to be dumb, right? If you think about them, how you got in, you were talking about, you start arguing about a cheeseburger. How do you get the cheeseburger? You got me the wrong cheeseburger, and it goes into some horrible, horrible fight. Why are you arguing about a cheeseburger? But that's what we do, right? So I'm sitting there and I'm arguing with him and I'm telling him that he can't and da-da-da-da-da. And I was basically making him feel stupid. I'm young. I don't know. But because what he cared about me, because he loved me so, he was emotional about it. And I was here with it. And so I did not see anything of what he was doing. And because I couldn't recognize that he was getting emotional about the argument, because I was too busy, proving my point and proving him wrong, that he turned around. We were young, over 20 some years ago, you guys, 28, something like that. And he punched the wall. So now I'm after him about punching our wall, as opposed to why he punched the wall. So now I'm chasing him, arguing about why he went all crazy punching the wall and about whatever we were arguing about. I had control. I wasn't fighting from my heart, and I was not listening to anything he said, his verbals and his non-verbals. Wasn't listening. And so when he left, right? He wasn't going to hit me, of course. That's not the kind of person he is. But he left because he couldn't take it anymore. And I'm sitting in an apartment that was nobody there. My kids were gone, because I never argue in front of my kids. We're going to talk about that as well. But my kids were gone, and we had one kid. They were gone, and I sat in this room, and I'm like, okay. And it's quiet, right? And I start to go over everything that had happened, every way that he transpired. Then I remembered the kind of man I married. I remembered that he is a teddy bear when it comes to me, that I am the most important thing in his life, that I was up here, right up under God, right? That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, oh my God, did you forget who you married? And I began to think about how idiotic I was, how immature I was. And now I didn't have my friend. My friend wasn't here. And he was my best friend, because we started out as friends. I've never had a lot of friends. All my life, I've had maybe one or two. That's it. And they come in waves. And it's okay. But he was my constant best friend. And I had to be right. And I chased him away. And at that moment, I said this to myself. I said, I'd rather have more time with him than this little time without him. And from that point in my arguments, I sat still. I listened to what he had to say. He listened to what I had to say, and we resolved it, because I started talking from here, because I did not want anything else to impede my being with him. And so, am I perfect now? Heck no. I mean, I'm still living. I'm not perfect. If I'm perfect, I need to go home to glory. But I try and I remember and I do well with it. But he has to remind me sometimes. He calls me Sunshine. Those of you who know me, you know, he calls me Sunshine. He goes, Sunshine, you're not listening. And then I say, I'm sorry. And then I'll listen. And sometimes, not sometimes, having an humble heart, because you're fighting from here, having an humble heart means so much. The Bible talks about even humbleness. This isn't, but this isn't a Bible lesson, but it talks about being humble. And if love is the center point of everything, if he says that charity begins in the home, then charity meaning love, begins in your relationship, begins in your marriage. You're the one that said this was the person for you. You're the one that says, till death do us part, I don't want. Live that vow. Live it. Learn what you're doing wrong. It's not a big deal. So communication is paramount. Communication is important. Communication is key. So that is the first part of our communication. Earl will be with me on the second one, I promise. He will be with me. We will always try to broadcast together. We are on Twitter at Behind the Vow. We are, our Facebook page is up and running, as you see, and then we're working on our web page. If you have a question, there are groups out there. I have a Behind the Vow premarital group, and I have a Behind the Vow marital group, and we're actually talking about fidelity. I don't have any members in there yet. But if you join, I'll be changing those conversations weekly. And don't forget, I am out there. He is out there posting little tidbits for you to gain and for you to know. Please, you guys, share this. Share what you know about us. Help us get out there. We Behind the Vow. Oh, I never explained why I said Behind the Vow. Most people say beyond. I say behind because I want you to understand. He wants you to understand what is behind the vow that you have made. What is behind the vow that is what you are about to embark on? Yeah, beyond is living, beyond is children, beyond is all of that. But behind it, the things that you must do to make this work, the things that you are saying that you will do to make this work till death do your part is behind those vows. And everything that you do, everything, it gets enveloped over those vows, So that's why we said Behind the Vow. We want you to join us next time. Please join us next time. Please tell a friend. I believe we're going to hit the stars with your help. Thanks for tuning in. And remember, communication is key. Bye.